Hey, if you don't have enough time, don't worry, I'm gonna summarize it right here. The game is fun. It's great, I love the weapons in the DLC. I think the stages have received a massive improvement compared to what we have in the base game. I would pretty much always get lost and I would always have to look around to make sure that I get everything, which I honestly enjoyed that feeling a lot. The story was very well executed, and honestly it was great seeing a bunch of characters from the base game in a previous timeline. And on top of that, the soundtrack was honestly pretty good. I don't think it was as good as the base game, but it was still relatively decent. The only downside to the entire DLC that I can think of is of course none other than the bosses. It's not that they are necessarily bad, but I feel like they are very much overtuned and overdesigned. If I had to compare it to like any particular Souls boss, I would say that we kind of have a promised console to dawn situation, where you basically get bombarded with attacks like constantly, and let's just say it's a bit way too tough, and I wouldn't be surprised if some bosses ended up getting nerfed, at least. But other than that, I would say that, yeah, the DLC was fun and I enjoyed it. Now then, let's get into the bit more details. So, I mentioned weapons. I haven't unlocked all of them, but so far all of the weapons that I've gotten were incredible. You get a sword, which lets you do a judgment cut, pretty much like Virgil, which I think was great. You get a bunch of great swords that actually feel viable compared to the slow-ass strength weapons of the base game. And most importantly, probably my favorite weapon from the DLC is a bow. Yes, a bow. I can't believe that I played Night Rain and I went from being an Iron Eye main in that game to being an Iron Eye main in Lies of P. And you know what? It was glorious. You know what I also really like about the bow? It has the flag of Romania for some reason. I also mentioned stages, and like I said before, I think that they have received the biggest upgrade compared to the base game. I have nothing against linear games, alright? Dark Souls 3 is one of my all-time favorites, with a reason. Lies of P's base game stages were also just overall pretty fun to do, but I guess I just wish that they had some more branching paths and such, and lo and behold, we actually have that with the DLC. Maybe not the very first area, but as soon as you step into the laboratory and the mine, you're gonna get lost quite often. We also have a couple of minigames, which I thought were very interesting. Yes, I know, minigames in my Souls game? What? It's not really anything complicated like in Final Fantasy, where you have to do like various weird or random stuff. No, it's basically stuff like whack-a-mole, where you have to roll or attack certain balloons, and if you destroy a certain number of them within a time frame, you get like an interesting item or some other kind of reward. It was great, honestly. There was another one where you had to destroy some like target dummies with like items, and I thought that was pretty fun as well. Although the targeting could be a bit bad, but you know, such is life. On top of all that, there is one more new system which I think is very well executed, and of course we're gonna be talking about our P organ. Yes, you can laugh, go on. Anyway, the gist of it is that you can upgrade previously selected enhancements. Let's say that you've taken some buffs like more ergo from enemies. You can upgrade it and it's gonna give you even more. It's very simple, but you know what? I love it. And if I had to compare it to another system from another game, I think I love this one way more. So, good job, NeoWiz. I wish I could also say good job when it comes to the bosses though. So, I'm gonna be honest, I really hated most of them. The very first boss that you fight, like a giant crocodile, was okay. I don't really have anything to complain about. I'm guessing it was more like a mini-boss if anything, but it was alright, you know, it was just your standard big enemy. The second boss is a duo boss fight. I don't know if I can really call it a duo, because you only really have to kill one enemy. If I had to compare it to a Souls boss, it would obviously be Lothric and Lorien, kind of. I enjoyed this one. I am always a sucker for duo fights, and if I can see a duo fight that's done well, I'm gonna be happy. And this fight, I think, is one of the best ones in the DLC. Next up, we have probably the first kind of annoying fight. So it's not that he's like very difficult, but he does have a phase where he basically just keeps attacking you constantly, and you're basically not really left with any breathing room. And I wasn't really a huge fan of that. I did summon for that boss, admittedly. After like 5 tries I was like, okay, you know what, let's just see what the summon is gonna be about. And I was kind of expecting a curse you Bale situation, but nah, Alidoro was just way too quiet. Which is a shame. But after that we had like another, actually, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a bitch, but there is one boss in the base game that I wasn't really a huge fan of. I would go so far as to say I hated it. Of course, I'm talking about the Swamp Monster. Can you guess which boss they brought back for the DLC? Yes, the Swamp Monster. Now, this is before it got like the puppet parts and stuff, but my goodness man, it was so annoying to fight. I just really hated this boss in the base game, and I wasn't really having a good time fighting it here too. And do you know what's the worst part about it? This is a secret boss. A boss that you can otherwise miss. And really? Why this guy? Look, I am a huge fan of boss rematches. Or just, you know, reused content with a twist, right? Everybody knows this, but the Asylum Demon in Dark Souls 1 is repurposed into the Erdtree avatar in Elden Ring. And you know what? I think that's awesome. I love that. But here it's like, oh my god, why couldn't you just pick another boss? Or enemy or whatever. Let me give another example. Do you remember the Dark Souls 2 door build guys in the base game of Lies of P? They were super defensive. Here, they also show up, but they focus a lot more on offense rather than defense. And so even if you're kind of used to fighting them and you know what they're gonna do, you're gonna get caught off guard by just how aggressive they can be. And I love that. And so I'm just baffled as to why, out of all the bosses in the game, the one that we got was the Swamp Monster. Like, it could have been anybody else, just why? Why this guy? But anyway, I'm sorry, bitch mode over. The next boss, however, the Guardian, I think was great. It's very much like Andreas, but I mean that in a very good way. I enjoyed Andreas a lot. And this boss similarly does a very good job at, you know, being fun. The attacks are telegraphed. You do have a couple of delayed attacks, but it's not too bad. And honestly, the fight is just kind of a spectacle, to be honest. In a good way, I mean. I wish I could say the same about Lumakio. His phase 2 is once again just, you know, the typical bullshit that I was talking about earlier, of just non-stop aggression and just attacking you constantly. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he got nerfed at some point to make him less aggressive, I guess. The same can be said about the final boss, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. Regarding Lumakio, his phase 1 is like actually pretty okay. Like, he's still very aggressive, don't get me wrong, and he has one attack where he throws some fog, or I don't know what to call it, but anyway, basically he fucks up your vision, okay? And he throws a couple of bombs at you, and after that he can either do a stab, which is a perilous attack, so you have to either dodge out of the way or block it right at the perfect time, which can be a bit difficult, or he can just open up his umbrella. And honestly, because of the fog, it's kind of hard to see sometimes. Like, you're focusing on the bombs to dodge away from them, and you're also having to focus to see if he's gonna charge at you. And the only indicator that you have is the red mark across his body. But the phase 2 is where the problem begins because, oh boy, like I said, he just attacks non-stop, and my only way to beat him reliably was to pretty much run away from him constantly while he's burning. He's weak to burn damage, so that's at least a huge upside. But my goodness, he was just... ugh. But that takes us to the last boss, which is Arlecchino. So the phase 1, perfect. I loved it. It's kind of like a dance. I know people always say this whenever they face like a good boss, like in Sekiro or something, but I do really mean it. It was fun to fight him. But my goodness, as soon as he goes into phase 2, he has an attack which lasts 20 seconds or something. I know I said this before, but I will say it again. I would not be surprised if a couple of these bosses ended up getting nerfed. Does that mean that the DLC is bad? Of course not. I enjoyed it a lot, but for now, I'm gonna go back to Night Rain. I want to say thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that if you're gonna play the DLC, that you're gonna have a great time. Summer is ahead, so make sure to also go outside and, you know, enjoy life, because there's a lot to enjoy. Other than that though, I will see you again, soon. Take care everybody.
You may rest here too, if you like.